Adam Coffey is the empire builder. He is a CEO coach, a top 1% speaker, a three-time best-selling author, CEO for more than 2 decades, working with PE firms, realizing billions of dollars. He has been serving on the Forbes Coaching Council, the Business Council since 2021. This is his third time on LifeBlood. Most importantly, he is releasing the second edition of the Private Equity Playbook. Welcome back to the show, Adam.
George, it's good to see you. It's been a while, and I don't know, have you had many three-time repeat guests on your show?
Not that many. So you are
I'm a
in rare.
competitive guy. It's like, I need all three of my episodes to be kind of your top, top five, top 10 for sure. That would be my goal here. So
Well,
good to see you and good to be back.
yeah, I appreciate it. It is rarefied air for sure. Forgot to mention, you are a United States Army veteran. Thank you for your service and a family man as well. So excited to have you back on. Refresh our memory. Tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and what motivated you
Sure.
to
You
uh,
know,
to make the second edition.
Yeah, life is a set of experiences, and so we're these experiences, they add up, and they're very much additive in life. And I can look back back at them now. It's like soldier taught me about discipline, teamwork, leadership at a young age. Great foundation. Engineering made me a meticulous planner. I'm a pilot. We don't take off unless we know where we're going. And when it comes to being an entrepreneur and building a company, I start with an exit in mind and then reverse engineer the journey. So being a pilot kind of taught me that skill. 10 years at GE during the Jack Welch era taught me how to run and turn around and grow a business. Fun time to be in my 30s as an up and coming executive. 21 years as a CEO, and built three national companies, 58 acquisitions, 2.5 billion in exits, and I built it for nine PE firms. And so that gave me, call it the seasoned experience, 15 years teaching at executive, MBA level for multiple universities, started to teach me how to teach, and how to give back and how to do something new. That led to my first book, and the first book, the Private Equity Playbook, I wrote it in 2018. It came out in 2019 in February, and that book continues to pick up steam. It's been a global #1 bestseller. It still hits #1, in the private equity category, almost every week in some version or format. And but that information is starting to get a little old. Back when I wrote the book, there was 2.83 trillion in private equity. Today, there's over 6 trillion. We had a global pandemic, and so there's, the world continues to change, continues to evolve. And I was asked, it's, hey, are you going to update this? And I thought, why not? This was my off year. I put out a book last year. I owe a book next year. Like, I've got the year. Let's do it. So updated numbers, expanded content, but still true to the original. Still very much a familiar read for those who've read the first book. And so it's the second edition. You don't get to do that too often, especially in the realm of business books.
I think it's awesome. 2.8 to 6 trillion in a very short amount of time. What do you attribute that to?
5 years, to outsized returns. So if you rotate back, it's only recently we've had this higher interest rate period where, even a money market's back to like 5.4%. And so we were kind of stuck in this 0% interest rate for a very long time. And you can typically count on about an 8% return in the S&P 500 over a 30-year period. And so private equity was returning 16 to 20% kind of on average as an asset class, and with no other real alternative investments, money just keeps on plowing in. And so the assets under management have more than doubled in the last 5 years, and I don't see it slowing down. I really don't. As long as the return profile stays, people keep earning more money, in the private equity world than they do in other types of investments. I think that they'll continue to keep growing.
Is it a function of more money flowing in or more firms opening up or both?
It's all of the above. So, also when I wrote the Private Equity Playbook, I mean, we had, 5,000 PE firms. It's over 8,000 today. It depends on how we, you know, define a private equity firm, because there's, loosely, there's a lot of really small companies out there that associate themselves as a private equity firm, but they don't really have limited partners or true funds in a fund sense. And so I think there's certainly a heightened awareness about private equity. But still, I got to tell you, George, to this day, when I teach a seminar, if I have 1,000 people in the room, they're all business owners, they're all potentially millionaires, or better. And I give a basic 10-question quiz on private equity, multiple choice. 90% of the room still to this day fails, which means that the reason why the private equity playbook keeps selling and the reason why an updated version made sense is just simply that the explosive growth of private equity and the way it's permeated every industry has really created the market by which entrepreneurs can be successful in building a business and selling a business and getting a wheelbarrow full of gold. But yet there's still a base level misunderstanding of what it is, how it works, and how they can use it as a tool, just as the private equity firms and their funds use the businesses and the entrepreneurs as a tool to generate returns for their shareholders.
I imagine some people have a perception that private equity is good. Some people think private equity is bad, and it's neither good nor bad. I'm sure that you need to evaluate each firm, and there's going to be a good fit, and you need to do due
You know
diligence.
what? It's a good point. There's with 8,000 plus firms out there in any ecosystem that's got 6 trillion in capital. There's good players, there's great players, there's bad players, there's god awful players, and everywhere in between. But technically, it's like when we typically hear about something in the news, it's usually in a negative connotation. Feel good stories don't sell. My last company, I remember when the pandemic hit, I was owned by Ares Management. Ares is the world's largest non-bank lender and one of the world's largest PE firms. And when COVID hit, they literally started a foundation inside every portfolio company that they owned, and they seeded it with 6-figure sum with their own money. And they told all the CEOs of all the portfolio companies, take care of your employees, people who are impacted by COVID, people who are out of work, people who have deaths in the family, and they were very supportive of trying to help their companies help the employees. Well, you didn't hear about that on CNBC or on the evening news. And so, my experience with private equity for entrepreneurs is when we understand how it works, we're able to evaluate who our potential partner might be, not just based on who's offering me the most money for my business. And I can actually find good companies that are good stewards to employees and cultures, and they can be a very positive influence on the growth trajectory of the company that we're building. So like any industry, the more we know about it, the better able we are to select, who our partner might be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is it knowable how many companies that are potential private equity partners, candidates to go into business with them, have some kind of a board of directors, or is that going to be a new experience for a lot of owners?
Well, for a lot of owners, it'll be a very new experience because the owner prior to selling to private equity was the majority shareholder. They didn't have a boss, and I bought 58 companies from 58 people who've never had a boss before.
Hmm.
I make them wealthy. I give them a wheelbarrow full of gold, and then for those who stay and continue on as rollover investors in my journey, I now have to get a bunch of rich people who've never had a boss to sing kumbaya around the fire, and follow me on an adventure and learn about second paydays and third paydays. And that's a skill. It takes a skill, to do that. I call myself a den mother, because trying to get people aligned who are now rich and have a boss for the first time, that's an interesting dynamic. And so that's also why I think from a private equity perspective, that they seek to partner with good companies, with good cultures, with good leaders who do care about employees, and culture is an important foundation in what they're doing. So the private equity that I've experienced over the decades, very different than the private equity I hear about on TV, which is what led me to write the book originally. It was like, this private equity thing's growing, it's growing fast. It's going to be a big influencer to the entrepreneurial world. They're creating the market by which we can sell companies, and nobody out there understands it. So that led to the first book. That's now led to the update, to the second book, because I guess not everybody in the world's read the first book yet. And so we still have an educational need out there to learn about private equity.
So 58 companies that you acquired, and they were all just the primary owner of the company. Did you miss with any of those?
Did I mess with any of those? Well,
Miss.
so my two biggest buy-in builds, I bought 34 companies with one, and in that business, only one of the 34 entrepreneurs stayed and continued on with me.
Okay.
The second adventure where I bought 23, 21 of 23 stayed, and they're still there today. And and a couple of people were in their 70s and ultimately wanted to retire, and that's why they were selling their business anyway. So for me as a buyer, it really has to do with risk. If I'm buying a company, that first company where I bought 34 and only one stayed, I had very little risk that the revenue was going to leave or go away. And so because the risk wasn't there, I did not need to share in the upside of arbitrage or the profit that was going to be generated for the shareholders. And so I let them, hang around for a year on a consulting agreement and then ride off into the sunset, which was kind of their demeanor and their desire to begin with. That's what they had a predisposition to want to do. In the last company, which was in HVAC, I did have revenue risk. And although most of my clients that I was acquiring had 3-year service agreements, they had 30-day cancellation clauses, like a lot of service agreements do. And so the relationship built over decades by these founders was critical to protecting that revenue. And so I mentioned this just simply because while entrepreneurs are out there dreaming about potentially selling a business and partnering with private equity, small business owners can play the M&A game too, and they can learn how to be out there as an acquirer and buying other companies. And so these things are also pertinent for them when they're a buyer. And so right now, George, I am working on 18 separate buy-in builds with 18 different entrepreneurs who are now doing what I did on an institutional large scale, and they're doing it on a small scale. Small companies learning how to do M&A, learning how to climb the PE pyramid and create arbitrage so that they can set themselves up for a better exit, a better partnership with a future private equity fund. And so that's what I do now. I've left the CEO world behind. I run a consulting business, and I'm having a blast working with 68 entrepreneurs, helping them scale, helping them learn how to do M&A, learning about M&A, and then helping them eventually prepare an exit. That's what I'm doing today. It's a lot of fun. I work more hours today now than I did when I was a CEO. And I think the first 2 times I was on your show, I was still a CEO, at those time periods. And so even, my career has continued to evolve. I turned 60 recently, and I decided I've got 10 years left. And over the next 10 years, what do I want to do? And building one company just wasn't fun anymore. And so I wanted to help multiple entrepreneurs succeed. And that's what my focus has been.
I love it. Is there some kind of a message that you share with a would-be client of yours now, the first time you meet them?
Well, all things are possible when we continue to learn and continue to challenge ourselves. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I call it, they suffer from accidental arrogance. They've beat the odds. They've built a business. Only 7% of companies ever get to $1 million in revenue, and only 4% get to 10 million in revenue. So these are people who beat the odds. And sometimes when we beat the odds, we think we've learned all there is to learn. We think we're an expert in every facet of running a business. And I tell you that when people are open to continuing to learn, continuing to grow, continuing to challenge themselves. And in today's world, I see just a much higher degree of willingness to do that. And so I see that with peer groups, and I see it by people hiring coaches and, joining YPO or Vistage, or, I have a thing called the Chairman Group. And, it's like people aspiring for more, learning from others who've walked, in their shoes ahead of them. And so, when entrepreneurs are willing to continue to learn, then I think greater things can be achieved. And most of those companies that I bought, entrepreneurs were kind of at a glass ceiling. They had no more bandwidth. They were micromanaging the heck out of their company, and that's what made them successful. And they didn't know how to stop that. And I talked to entrepreneurs about shifting entrepreneurial gears and learning how to go from being a micromanager to being a conductor of an orchestra, and learning how to manage process instead of managing minutia, and learning how to hire and assemble a high performance team, empower them and provide, call it the leadership and the vision, and articulate that vision, but then get out of the way and let them run and hold them accountable and use measuring systems to make sure we're on track. But these are different skills. And so the entrepreneur that can get from 0 to a million to 10, and they're topping out at 20 to 30, if they can change gears, these are the people who can go to 100 million in revenue. And that's a different level of special right there.
That makes a lot of sense. I perceive you to be somebody who is extremely thoughtful and kind and giving of your time. I don't know if you consider yourself to be that way. Have you always been that way? Is that have you matured?
I've been a servant leader since before there was a title for servant leadership, and I would blame the military for that. I was a squad leader, call it a sergeant. I was an enlisted guy, and taking care of your troops and taking the hill from the front, not the back. And so I've never been a guy, to be comfortable sitting behind the desk. I like to be out in the trenches, and for me, that's the only way I know. So, I do that. To this day, it's like, I do have a publicist when a book is coming out, and I do have a team of people, but I'm the only one who is inside my LinkedIn account, and I am the only one who responds, and I literally respond to, every inquiry that I get, and I get a lot, but when people reach out and they want to connect with me, I give them that opportunity to connect with me. And so, I even recall getting on a phone call with your wife because you asked, and you said, "Hey, my wife is facing some of these questions. Can you help?" Of course I can. That's what I do. I'm blessed, and I'm very grateful for my success. And so a way that I feel like karma in the world. It's like I keep doing good things for people, good things keep happening to me. I'm not messing with that. I'm not messing with that formula. So it served me well this far, and I figure I've got a good 10 years left in my working career now. And so working with people and helping them succeed has been a lot of fun.
Amen, brother. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming back on. Where can people learn more about you and everything that you have going on? And where can they get their copy of the Private Equity Playbook, Management's Guide to Working with Private Equity, the second edition?
Well, that book is available anywhere fine books are sold. It's available on Audible. It's an audio book. It's an ebook. It's a hardcover. It's a soft cover. Anywhere you can find a book, you can find that book. And LinkedIn is probably the best place, easiest place to reach out to me. Multiple websites out there, adamcoffey.com. There's chairmangroup.us, different places. But LinkedIn is where you find me multiple times every day, early in the morning, late at night. I'm always on there engaging with people. So thanks for having me back on, George. It was good to see you. Maybe I'll do number 4 next year when the next book comes out. Who knows? But appreciate the chance to be on here and talk about my passion project, which is helping entrepreneurs succeed.
Tell you what, Adam, you better come back on next year, buddy.
If you'll have me, I'll be here.
If you enjoyed as much as I did, show Adam your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Find Adam on LinkedIn. Find him on adamecoffey.com. Pick up your copy of the Private Equity Playbook, Management's Guide to Working with Private Equity, the second edition, wherever you buy your books. And check out his other books too. Check out all the other programs that Adam is offering and working to bring good things into the world on. Take advantage of the next 10 years. Who knows what he's going to do after that. So thanks again, Adam.
All right. Great to see you, George.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.